Jinwoo held his mother's hand tightly as they walked through the huge space station market. His small 8-year-old fingers squeezed around He-Jin's warm palm while his wide brown eyes stared at everything around him. The Kepler station market was like nothing he had ever seen before. Giant blue creatures with 4 arms sold glowing fruits from their floating stalls. Tiny green aliens no bigger than his hand buzzed around selling metal trinkets that sparkled in the artificial sunlight. Purple octopus-like beings waved their tentacles as they called out prices for strange weapons and tools. Jinwoo had never imagined so many different kinds of life could exist in one place. The air smelled like a mix of sweet flowers and burning. Metal sounds filled his ears from every direction, aliens speaking in clicking languages he could not understand, the hum of floating vehicles moving overhead, the beep, beep, beep of scanning devices checking goods for trade. His mother, He-Jin, walked, slowly, so Jinwoo could keep up. She wore her best blue dress today because they were meeting with important traders who wanted to buy rare metals from Earth. Jinwoo did not understand much about his mother's work, but he knew she was very smart, and other aliens respected her. They stopped at a large stall run by a creature that looked like a giant gray elephant, but with 4 arms instead of a trunk. The alien trader had kind yellow eyes and spoke in broken human language. "Good morning, Earth." "Woman!" the trader said while his 4 hands sorted through containers of shiny rocks. "I have very good minerals today. Special price for you, because you always pay." Fair He-Jin smiled and let go of Jinwoo's hand to examine the rocks. Jinwoo knew this would take a while. His mother was very careful when she bought things. She always checked everything twice and asked many questions. While his mother talked with the elephant creature, Jinwoo looked around the market. A group of tall, skinny aliens with silver skin were juggling balls of light that changed colors as they flew through the air. Near them, a family of bear-like creatures shared what looked like cotton candy that sparkled like stars. Jinwoo wandered a few steps away from his mother's stall. His eyes caught sight of something amazing, a display case full of crystals that glowed with their own inner light. Some were blue like the ocean. Some were red like fire. Others were green like the forests back on Earth. The crystals sat on a tall table next to a food stand where a friendly-looking alien with purple fur was cooking something that smelled wonderful. Jinwoo moved closer to get a better look at the beautiful stones. They were so pretty and seemed to pulse with life, like tiny hearts made of light. He stretched up on his tiptoes trying to see the crystals better, but the table was too high for such a small boy. Jinwoo looked around and saw a small box near the food stand. He carefully climbed up on it to get a better view. Now he could see all the crystals clearly. There were dozens of them, each one more beautiful than the last. One crystal in particular caught his attention. It was the size of his fist and glowed with soft white light that seemed to dance inside like trapped lightning. Jinwoo leaned forward to get an even closer look. He was so amazed by the dancing light that he did not notice the tall shadow falling across him. A massive figure approached the food stand, ordering something in a deep, growling voice. The creature was a reptilian soldier from the Scale-born Legion. He stood over 8 feet tall, with dark green scales that looked like armor covering his entire body. His name was Vextar, and he was one of the most feared. Warriors in his unit Vextar had yellow eyes like molten gold and claws that could cut through metal. His uniform showed many medals and badges that proved he had fought in battles across the galaxy. He carried himself with the pride of someone who had never lost a fight. The reptilian soldier ordered a ceremonial drink from the purple-furred alien. It was a special blue liquid that warriors from his planet drank before important missions. The drink came in a tall crystal cup that was worth more than most aliens made in a year. As Vextar reached for his expensive drink, Jinwoo leaned forward even more to see the dancing crystal better, but the small box under his feet was not very steady. It wobbled and Jinwoo lost his balance. The little human boy tumbled backward off the box. His small body crashed right into the massive reptilian soldier's legs. The impact was not hard, but it was unexpected. Vextar stumbled forward, and his clawed hand knocked the crystal cup from the counter. Ceremonial drink splashed all over Vextar's dark green uniform. The blue liquid stained his metals and ran down his chest plate. The expensive crystal cup shattered into 1,000 pieces. When it hit the metal floor, Jinwoo landed hard on his bottom, next to the broken crystal. His eyes filled with tears as he realized what had happened. The beautiful glowing crystals on the table now seemed scary instead of wonderful. Everything had gone wrong. So fast, Vextar looked down at his ruined uniform. The blue stain covered the medal he had earned for bravery in the Battle of Crimson Nebula. His ceremonial drink was gone, and the cup could never be replaced. In his culture, spilling a warrior's drink was a terrible insult. The massive reptilian soldiers, yellow eyes burned with rage. His scales bristled like the fur of an angry cat. His claws extended from his fingers as his anger grew. Jinwoo had never seen anything so scary in his whole life. All around them, the busy market began to grow quiet. Other aliens noticed what was happening. Some moved away quickly, not wanting to be near an angry, scale-born warrior. Others stopped what they were doing to watch. "You clumsy little creature," Vextar roared in his deep voice. "Do you know what you have done? Do you understand the shame you have brought upon me?" Jinwoo tried to say sorry, but only small, frightened sounds came from his throat. He had never seen an alien so angry before. The reptilian soldier seemed to grow even bigger as his rage increased. Without thinking about consequences or rules, Vexatar raised his massive clawed hand high above his head. His warrior instincts took over his mind. All he could think about was punishing the small creature that had embarrassed him. The great, clawed hand came down fast and hard. It struck Jinwoo across his small face with enough force to lift the 8-year-old boy off the ground. The sound of the impact echoed through the suddenly silent market like a thunder crack. Jinwoo flew backward. Through the air, his tiny body crashed into a nearby stall, sending metal containers flying everywhere. He landed in a heap among scattered goods, his lip bleeding and his cheek already turning purple. The entire market fell completely silent. Even. The background hum of machinery seemed to stop. Every alien eye turned to look at the scene. The small human child lay crying among the scattered containers, while the massive reptilian soldier stood over him breathing heavily from across the market. Hyojin heard her son's cry. She turned away from her trading and saw the terrible scene. Her heart stopped for a moment when she saw Jinwoo on the ground, bleeding and crying. "No," she screamed, running toward her injured child. Her voice cut through the silence like a knife. She pushed past startled aliens and dropped to her knees beside Jinwoo Hyojin. Gathered her son in her arms, checking his injuries. The left side of his face was swelling and his lip was cut, but he seemed to have no broken bones. She held him tight while tears ran down her own face. "You monster!" she yelled at Vextar. "He is just a child. How could you hurt a little boy?" Vextar looked down at the crying human woman and her injured child. He felt no guilt or sadness about what he had done. In his mind, he had simply corrected bad behavior from a lower species. The child needed to learn respect, he said coldly. Perhaps now he will be more careful around his betters. Other aliens in the market watched, but none of them moved to help. Some even nodded as if they agreed with the reptilian soldier's actions. Humans were still new members of the Galactic Federation. Many aliens still saw them as weak creatures who needed to learn their place. Hyojin held Jinwoo tighter and glared at Vextar with pure hatred in her eyes. She memorized every detail of his face and uniform. She would remember this moment forever. But none of the aliens in that market knew who Jin Woo's father really was. None of them understood that they had just witnessed the moment that would change everything. None of them realized that the small crying boy in his mother's arms was the son of the most dangerous human military commander in the galaxy. The storm was coming, and Vexitar had no idea what he had just unleashed upon himself and everyone he cared about. Admiral Tae-hyun walked down the long metal hallway of his massive warship, the Soul's Fury. His black military boots made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor as he headed toward his family quarters. The day had been filled with boring meetings about supply routes and patrol schedules. The Soul's Fury was the biggest and most powerful ship in the human fleet. It stretched over 2 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy entire planets. Tae-hyun commanded not just this ship, but the entire human defense force in this part of the galaxy. Other species called him the Iron Wolf of Andromeda because he was so good at hunting down enemies. His strategic mind could see patterns and weaknesses that others missed. He had never lost a single battle in his 15-year career at only 35 years old. Tae-hyun was the youngest admiral in human history. Some alien leaders thought humans promoted him too fast because of politics, but those who fought against him quickly learned that his age meant nothing. His tactical genius was feared across 3-star systems. The hallway was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Crew members who passed him in the corridor stood straight and saluted with respect. Tae-hyun nodded back to each one, but his mind was already focused on seeing his family. He had been away from Hyejin and Jinwoo for 3 days while dealing with reports of pirate activity near the outer colonies. The pirates were mostly alien criminals who thought human ships would be easy targets. They learned very quickly how wrong they were. Tae-hyun reached the door to his quarters and pressed his palm against the scanner. The heavy door slid open with a soft hiss sound. He stepped inside, expecting to see Jinwoo running to hug him like always. Instead, he found Hyejin sitting on their couch holding their son in her arms. Both of them looked upset. Hyejin had tears on her cheeks, and Jinwoo's small face was hidden against his mother's shoulder. Something was very wrong. Tae-hyun could feel it in the air like electricity before a storm. His warrior instincts kicked in, immediately scanning the room for threats. His hand moved toward his weapon before he realized his family was safe inside their own home. Hyejin looked up when she heard him enter. Her beautiful face was streaked with tears, and her dark eyes held an anger he had never seen before. She held Jinwoo closer as if protecting him from some invisible danger. What happened? Tae-hyun's voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of deadly calm that his enemies knew meant trouble. His hands began to shake slightly as he moved closer to his family. Jinwoo lifted his head to look at his father. The left side of the boy's small face was covered by a huge purple bruise that extended from his cheek to his forehead. His bottom lip was swollen and split where it had been cut. The sight hit Tae-hyun like a physical blow. His knees almost gave out as he stared at his injured son. Someone had hurt his child. The most important person in his entire universe had been attacked while he was away playing politics with other officers. Papa Jinwoo whispered in a small voice that sounded tired and scared. "The bad lizard hit me really hard." Tae-hyun's world stopped spinning for a moment. Everything became crystal clear in a way that only happened during combat. His breathing became slow and controlled. His mind shifted into the cold, calculating mode that had made him legendary. He knelt down beside the couch and gently touched Jinwoo's uninjured cheek with his fingertips. These were the same hands that had signed death warrants for entire pirate fleets. Now they trembled as they traced around his son's bruise. "Tell me everything," he said to Hyejin. His voice was still quiet, but now it carried something that made her shiver. The tone reminded her of winter storms and distant thunder through broken sobs. Jin told him the whole story about the market trip. She described how Jin Woo had been, looking at pretty crystals when he accidentally bumped into the giant reptilian soldier. She explained how the alien had spilled his drink and become furious. The creature was enormous, she said. Her voice shook with remembered fear. At least 8 feet tall with scales like armor and claws that could cut metal. He hit Jin Woo so hard that our baby flew across the market and crashed into metal containers. Tae-hyun listened without saying a word. His face became a mask that showed no emotion at all. But inside his chest, a fire was building that would soon consume everything in its path. What was this creature's name? His name was Vextar from something called the Scaleborn Legion. Jin wiped tears from her eyes. Other aliens in the market just watched it happen. Some of them even seemed happy that he hit Jin Woo. They think we are weak. The door to their quarters opened, and Commander So Young entered. She was Tae-hyun's second in command and had served with him for over 10 years. So Young took one look at the scene and immediately understood that something terrible had occurred. Her eyes fell on Jin Woo's bruised face, and her own expression hardened. So Young had no children of her own, but she loved Jin Woo like he was her nephew. She had taught him to play chess and always brought him candy from different planets. Sir, she said carefully, recognizing the dangerous stillness in her admiral's posture. She had seen this exact look before, right before Tae-hyun had reduced the crimson. Nebula pirates to floating debris. Tae-hyun stood up slowly, like a predator preparing to hunt. His movements were controlled and precise in a way that meant someone was about to die. He walked to his personal computer terminal and began typing commands. Commander. I want everything he said without turning around, every record, every file, every breath this creature has taken. I want to know his unit, his commanders, his family, his fears, his weaknesses, everything. The reptilian who struck Jin Woo, his name is Vextar, of the Scaleborn Legion 3rd Assault Division. Tae-hyun's fingers moved across the keyboard with deadly purpose, and he has just made the greatest mistake of his worthless life. So Young felt a chill run down her spine. She had served in many battles beside Tae-hyun, but had never heard quite this tone in his voice before. It was the sound of absolute certainty mixed with carefully controlled rage. What are your orders? Sir. Tae-hyun pulled up star charts showing ship positions across their sector of space. His tactical mind was already working through possibilities and scenarios. The same genius that made him unbeatable in space combat was now focused on a single target. First, I want his exact location. Then I want detailed analysis of his ship's capabilities, crew complement, and current mission parameters. After that, I want contingency plans for intercepting his vessel without causing diplomatic incidents. So Young began taking notes on her portable computer, sir, with respect starting. A war over a personal grievance might not be wise. The Federation Council will ask questions. Tae-hyun turned around and looked at her with eyes that seemed to burn like stars. His smile was colder than the empty space between galaxies. Who said anything about starting a war, Commander? We are simply going to remind the Outer Rim territories why human ships patrol their space. If certain individuals find themselves in our path during these routine operations, well, space can be quite dangerous behind them. Jin Woo had fallen asleep in his mother's arms, exhausted by pain and fear. But even in sleep, his small hand reached up to touch the bruise on his face. Tae-hyun walked back to his family and gently kissed his son's forehead. The gesture was tender and loving, but his eyes remained fixed on the computer screen showing Vextar's military record. Outside their quarters, the Soul's fury began to hum with increased activity as word spread through the human fleet. Someone had hurt the Iron Wolf's cub. The crew members who heard the news felt their own anger rising. They all knew Jin Woo from his visits to different parts of the ship. The little boy was everyone's favorite passenger. He asked endless questions about how things worked, and always thanked the crew members for their service. Now someone had hurt their admiral's child, and by extension had insulted the entire human fleet. The alien who did this was about to learn why humans had survived every attempt to wipe them out in the depths. Of the ship weapons, technicians began running diagnostic tests on missile systems. Engineering crews started calculating maximum sustainable warp speeds. Communications officers began monitoring alien fleet movements. The hunt was about to begin, and Admiral Tae-hyun had all the resources of humanity's finest warships at his disposal. The universe was about to discover what happened when someone made the mistake of harming a human child. 2 hours after learning about Jin Woo's injury, Admiral Tae-hyun sat in the Seoul's Fury's main command center. The huge room was filled with glowing screens and control panels that monitored everything happening in their sector of space. Dozens of officers worked at their stations, tracking ship movements, analyzing communications, and updating star charts. The command center never slept, just like the admiral, who rarely left his post when hunting enemies. Holographic displays floated in the air around Tae-hyun's command chair, showing detailed information about Vextar and his military unit. The data painted a picture of a brutal soldier who had spent decades hurting weaker opponents. Commander So Young approached with a data pad in her hands. "Sir, I've completed the background research on your target." "The information is quite disturbing," Tae-hyun gestured for her to continue. His eyes remained fixed on Vextar's service record, which showed incident after incident of unnecessary violence against civilian populations. According to Federation records, Vextar has 17 documented cases of excessive force against non-military targets. So Young read from her notes. Most victims were members of species considered physically weaker than reptilians. 17 cases, Tae-hyun repeated softly. And what happened to him after each incident? He was transferred to new assignments each time. The Galactic Federation considers such transfers adequate punishment for what they call cultural misunderstandings. Tae-hyun's laugh had no humor in it. Cultural misunderstandings. So when a reptilian soldier beats helpless civilians, it's just a cultural difference. But when humans defend themselves, we are called aggressive and warlike, Captain. Minho entered the command center, carrying additional intelligence reports. The ship's senior analyst had been working non-stop since receiving his orders. His usually neat uniform was wrinkled from hours of research. "Sir, I have the information you requested about Vextar's current assignment," Minho said while handing over encrypted data files. Tae-hyun opened the files and studied the tactical information. Vextar was currently serving aboard the battlecruiser Scaled Justice under Captain Thexvar. The ship was part of a convoy escorting high-value prisoners through the Omega sector. "What kind of prisoners?" Tae-hyun asked. Though his tactical mind was already forming plans, "Political rebels from the failed Mantis uprising," Minho replied. "Over 1,000 prisoners are being transported to detention facilities in the inner systems. The convoy consists of 6 ships, including 3 heavily armored prison vessels." Tae-hyun studied the convoy route and timing calculations. His strategic genius could see opportunities that other commanders would miss. The same mental skills that made him unbeatable in battle now focused on a single enemy. "How long since we conducted anti-piracy operations in the Omega sector?" "Nearly 6 months, sir. Command has been focusing our efforts on protecting the inner colonies from raider attacks. Then it's time we reminded the Outer Rim why human patrol ships keep their space lanes safe." Tae-hyun's fingers drummed against his command chair as plans took shape in his mind. So Young recognized the look in her admiral's eyes. She had seen it before major battles when he was calculating victory from impossible odds. But this felt different, more personal, and therefore more dangerous, "Sir," she said carefully. "Perhaps we should consider the diplomatic consequences. The Federation Council will ask why we deployed 5 dreadnoughts to intercept a routine prisoner." Transport Tae-hyun turned to look at his second-in-command. His smile was pleasant and reasonable, which somehow made it more frightening than any expression of anger. "Commander, we are not intercepting anything. We are simply conducting our normal patrol duties. If we happen to encounter Federation vessels during these patrols, it would be rude not to offer assistance. But, sir, the reptilian fleet outranks us in the Federation hierarchy. They could file formal complaints about harassment. Let them file complaints." Tae-hyun stood up from his command chair and walked to the main display screen, showing current fleet positions. Every species in this galaxy needs to understand that harming human children carries consequences. The Admiral pulled up detailed schematics of the Scaled Justice and her escort vessels. His tactical analysis showed weak points in their formation and vulnerabilities in their defensive systems. "Captain Min Ho, I want you to calculate the optimal intercept course for our fleet. We need to arrive in the Omega sector exactly when the prison convoy passes through the main shipping lane." Min-ho began working on his calculations, while Tae-hyun continued studying the enemy ships. The reptilian battlecruiser was powerful, but it was only one vessel against 5 human dreadnoughts. So-young moved closer to her admiral and lowered her voice. "Sir, I understand your anger, but starting a shooting war over personal revenge could cost thousands of lives." Tae-hyun looked at her with eyes that seemed to see right through her soul. His voice was quiet but carried absolute certainty. "Commander, that alien creature struck my 8-year-old son hard enough to send him flying across a crowded marketplace. He did it casually without thought because he sees humans as inferior beings who deserve no respect." So-young had no answer for that. She had seen Jin Woo's injuries herself and felt her own anger at the senseless cruelty. Furthermore, Tae-hyun continued. Every other alien in that market watched it happen and did nothing. Some even approved of the violence. They think we are weak creatures who should know our place in their hierarchy. The Admiral walked back to his command station and began issuing orders to fleet communications. Officers began relaying commands to the other 4 human dreadnoughts in their battle group. "This is not about personal revenge, Commander. This is about sending a clear message to every species in the galaxy. Touch our children and we will find you. We will hunt you down no matter how far you run or how many allies protect you." Alarms began sounding throughout the Soul's Fury as the ship prepared for combat operations. Crew members ran to battle stations while weapon systems came online with deadly efficiency. The other ships in Tae-hyun's fleet received their orders and began moving into formation. The human dreadnoughts were massive vessels designed for one purpose: destroying anything that threatened humanity. Each ship carried enough firepower to level entire cities. Their crews were trained from childhood to fight with ruthless efficiency against any enemy. The sight of 5 such vessels working together had broken the courage of entire alien fleets. Tae-hyun took one final look at the image of Vextar on his command screen. The reptilian soldier had no idea that his casual act of violence had signed his death warrant. In 12 hours, the prison convoy would enter the Omega Sector shipping lanes. In 12 hours, Admiral Tae-hyun would teach the galaxy that human children were not acceptable targets. Iron Wolf had picked up a scent, and nothing in the universe would stop him from reaching his prey. Not diplomatic protests, not Federation regulations, not even the threat of interstellar war, as the Soul's Fury and her sister ships jumped to hyperspace. Tae-hyun made a silent promise to his sleeping son. Justice was coming for the creature who had hurt him, and when it arrived, it would be swift, terrible, and absolutely final. In the depths of space, 5 human warships raced toward their destination, carrying the concentrated fury of an entire species. No force in the galaxy was more dangerous than humans. Protecting their young Vextar was about to learn this lesson in the most final way possible. 3 days had passed since the marketplace incident, and Vextar had completely forgotten about the small human child he had struck. The memory had faded from his mind like smoke in the wind. To him, it was just another moment of maintaining proper order among the weaker species. The massive reptilian soldier stood at his duty station aboard the battlecruiser, scaled justice reviewing security protocols with his usual arrogant confidence. His dark green scales gleamed under the ship's artificial lights, and his yellow eyes scanned tactical displays without concern. Around him, the bridge crew of the Scaled Justice went about their normal duties. The ship was leading a convoy of 6 vessels through the supposedly safe Omega Sector shipping. Lane's 3 heavily armored prison ships carried over 1,000 political prisoners from the failed Mantis Rebellion. Captain Thex Var sat in his command chair studying navigation charts. The reptilian commander was an experienced officer who had led dozens of successful missions. His scaled face showed the confidence of someone who had never faced a real challenge. "The prisoners are secure," Sir reported the first officer. "All containment fields are operating at full power and guard rotations are proceeding on schedule." "Good," Captain Thexvar replied without looking up from his charts. "We should reach the inter-system detention facilities in 2 more days." Vextar barely listened to the conversation. His attention was focused on weapon maintenance, reports, and patrol schedules. The routine nature of their mission had made him lazy and inattentive. The convoy moved through space in a standard defensive formation with the Scaled Justice leading the way. The prison ship stayed in the middle while 2 escort frigates provided rearguard protection. It was a formation designed to handle pirates and raiders, not military fleets. Contact on long-range sensors announced the ship's scanner operator. Multiple vessels approaching from the asteroid. Field bearing 27 Mark IV. Captain Thexvar glanced at the tactical display without concern. Probably merchants or salvagers. This sector sees regular commercial traffic, but as the sensor contacts resolved into clearer images, the bridge crew began to realize their mistake. What they had dismissed as merchant vessels were actually something far more dangerous. 5 massive shapes emerged from the shadows of the asteroid field like predators rising from deep water. The ships were painted black with white markings, and bristled with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. "Human dreadnoughts," Vextar whispered, as recognition dawned in his yellow eyes. He had heard stories about these ships, but had never seen them in person. The lead vessel was enormous even by dreadnought standards. Its hull stretched nearly 2 miles long, and weapon ports covered every surface like the eyes of some ancient monster. White letters across its bow spelled out Sol's Fury Captain Thexvar's confidence, evaporated like water in vacuum. These were not merchant ships or salvagers. These were the most advanced warships in the galaxy, operated by the most dangerous military force known to exist, human fleet. "This is Captain Thexvar of the Scaled Justice." Thexvar transmitted on standard communication frequencies. "You are interfering with an official Federation prisoner transport. State your intentions immediately." The response came in a calm, measured voice that somehow carried more threat than any. Shouted challenge Captain Thexvar. "This is Admiral Tae-hyun of the Human Defense Force. We have received reports of increased pirate activity in this sector. We are here to ensure the safety of all Federation vessels." Vextar felt a chill run through his scaled body. The name Tae-hyun was known throughout the galaxy as the Iron Wolf of Andromeda. The human admiral had never lost a battle and was famous for his ruthless efficiency in destroying enemies. "We require no escort," Admiral Thexvar replied, though his voice now carried less certainty. "Our ships are more than capable of handling any threats we might encounter. I am sure they are, Captain. However, our intelligence suggests otherwise." Tae-hyun's voice remained pleasant and reasonable, which made it somehow more menacing. "You see, we have identified several members of your crew as persons of interest in ongoing investigations." The bridge crew looked around nervously, wondering who among them might be wanted for crimes. Vextar began to feel the first stirrings of genuine fear. Though he could not yet understand why, "I am afraid I must insist on conducting a full inspection of your vessels." Tae-hyun continued, Captain Thex Var's scales bristled with indignation. You have no authority to inspect Federation military vessels. This is completely outside normal protocols. Actually, Captain, I do have such authority. Tai Hyun's voice dropped several degrees in temperature. Under Article 7 of the Mutual Defense Treaty, any Federation admiral may investigate suspected violations of interspecies conduct codes. Thex Var looked confused. What violations? What conduct codes are you talking about? 3 days ago, one of your soldiers struck a human child. The statement hit the bridge like a physical blow. Assault against civilian populations is a Category 1 war crime under Federation law. The perpetrator will be extradited to face trial. Vex Tar's blood turned to ice water in his veins as the truth crashed down on him. The humans had come for him specifically. They had brought 5 dreadnoughts to collect justice for one small, injured child. The other bridge crew members turned to stare at Vex Tar with expressions of horror and disbelief. They realized that his moment of casual cruelty had brought death to their doorstep. Admiral Captain Thex Var transmitted desperately. You cannot seriously intend to threaten 5 Federation vessels over a minor disciplinary action against a civilian. Minor Tai Hyun's laugh carried no humor whatsoever. Captain, that civilian was my 8-year-old son. And your soldier did not discipline him. He brutally assaulted a child for the crime of being clumsy. The revelation sent shockwaves through both fleets. Every alien crew member aboard the reptilian ships suddenly understood the magnitude of their situation. They were not facing a routine inspection. They were staring down, the concentrated fury of a father's rage. In human culture, harming children is the ultimate sin. Tai Hyun continued, his voice now carried the weight of absolute moral certainty. We protect our young above all other considerations. Vex Tar stepped forward on trembling legs. His massive frame shook with a mixture of terror and desperate bravado. I am a warrior of the Scale-born Legion. I will not be intimidated by smooth-skinned mammals. You will be transferred immediately, Admiral Tai Hyun replied with deadly calm. Or my fleet will exercise emergency powers under Federation security protocols. I have 5 dreadnoughts. Captain, you have 1 battle cruiser and some prison transports. The mathematical reality of their situation was brutally clear. The human fleet possessed overwhelming firepower advantage. Any attempt at resistance would result in the complete destruction of the convoy. Captain, Thex Var realized he faced an impossible choice. Fighting would mean the death of thousands, including the innocent prisoners they were supposed to protect. Refusing could be seen as harboring a war. Criminal. Either path led to disaster, but one path led to certain death, while the other offered at least the possibility of survival. Vex Tar. You fool, the captain hissed at his subordinate. Do you realize what you have done? Do you understand that your moment of stupidity has condemned us all? For the first time in his life, Vex Tar felt genuine fear crawling up his spine like ice water. The human admiral's reputation was legendary throughout the galaxy. Stories were told of entire pirate fleets vanishing overnight, of impossible victories against overwhelming odds. I was maintaining discipline. Vex Tar protested weakly. The child was careless and needed to learn respect. The child was 8 years old. Tai Hyun's voice cut through the communication channel like a blade made of winter wind. He made a mistake that any child might make. Your response was that of a coward and a bully. The words struck deeper than any physical blow because Vex Tar knew they were true. He had not disciplined an unruly subordinate. He had brutally attacked a helpless child. You will answer for your crimes. Admiral Tai Hyun continued, and the galaxy will learn that human children are not acceptable targets for alien aggression. Captain Thex Var looked around his bridge at crew members who were beginning to panic. Some were already calculating escape pod trajectories, while others checked weapon readiness, despite knowing how hopeless resistance would be. The captain realized he had only one choice that would not result in mass slaughter. Slowly, reluctantly, he gave the order that would seal Vextar's fate. Prepare a shuttle, he commanded. Transfer Vextar to the human fleet immediately. Vextar found himself inside a holding cell aboard the Soul's Fury, surrounded by walls of pure energy that hummed with deadly power. The cell was clean and well lit, but felt more threatening than any dungeon he could imagine. The reptilian soldier had been stripped of his weapons medals and rank insignia. He wore only a simple gray prisoner uniform that made him look ordinary rather than fearsome. His mighty claws had been covered with restraint devices that prevented him from harming anyone human. Crew members passed by his cell, regularly going about their duties with casual efficiency. None of them gave him more than a brief glance. Their indifference was somehow more disturbing than outright hatred would have been. The corridors of the Soul's Fury were filled with purposeful activity as thousands of humans worked to keep their massive warship operational. Vextar could hear their voices speaking in calm, professional tones as they discussed technical matters. These were not the weak, frightened creatures he had expected. Instead, they moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never known defeat. Their casual competence was more intimidating than any display of anger. Hours passed before Admiral Tae-hyun finally came to visit his prisoner. The human leader appeared outside the energy barrier, accompanied by Commander So-young. His presence seemed to fill the small space despite his unremarkable appearance. At first glance, Tae-hyun looked like any human father of average height, with dark hair and kind eyes that might belong to someone who worked in an office. But Vextar could feel the controlled power radiating from him like heat from a star. "Do you know why you are here?" Tae-hyun asked quietly. His voice carried no anger or hatred, just calm certainty. "Because I struck your offspring," Vextar replied, trying to maintain some dignity. Despite his circumstances, Rong Tae-hyun stepped closer to the energy barrier. "You are here because you believe that might makes right. You think being bigger and stronger gives you permission to hurt those who cannot fight back." The human admiral's eyes seemed to look straight through Vextar into his soul. "In your culture, this may be acceptable behavior. In mine, it makes you less than worthless." Vextar's scales bristled with indignation. "I am a warrior. I have fought in 16 major campaigns against enemies of the Federation, against other soldiers," Tae-hyun replied calmly, "against armed opponents who chose to fight. Tell me, great warrior, how many 8-year-old children have you defeated in glorious combat?" The mockery in the human's tone cut deeper than any physical wound. Vextar realized that nothing in his military training had prepared him for this kind of psychological warfare. "I maintain discipline among lesser species," he said desperately. "It is necessary for maintaining order. Lesser species." Tae-hyun's voice became dangerously quiet. "My son is not a lesser anything. He is a child who made an innocent mistake. Children bump into things. They spill drinks. They make messes." The Admiral paused, and his expression grew even more intense. "But they do not deserve to be brutally assaulted by creatures who should know better." So-young watched the exchange with professional interest. She had seen her admiral interrogate many prisoners over the years, but never with quite this level of personal investment. "Your punishment begins now," Tae-hyun continued. "You will serve 2 years of labor service in human agricultural colonies. You will help grow food to feed families like mine." Vextar felt a chill of fear run through his body. Agricultural labor was considered shameful work for a warrior of his status. "You will work alongside human children," Tae-hyun went on, "and you will learn to see them as living beings with hopes and dreams, rather than insects to be swatted when they inconvenience you. And if I refuse to accept this punishment, The tension in space crackled like electricity before a deadly storm. 2 fleets faced each other across the void, with enough firepower between them to destroy entire star systems. The fate of thousands hung in the balance, while two commanders played a game of words and threats. Captain Thexvar's order to transfer Vextar had been given but not yet carried out. The massive reptilian soldier stood frozen at his duty station as the reality of his situation sank into his mind like poison around him. His fellow crew members were backing away, creating an empty circle of space. Their expressions showed fear, anger, and disgust. Some had served with Vextar for years, but now they looked at him like he was diseased. "You cannot do this," Vextar protested to his captain. His voice cracked with desperation. "I am a decorated warrior of the Scaleborn Legion. I have served our people with honor for 20 years. Honor." Captain Thexvar spat the word like it tasted bitter. "What honor is there in striking helpless children? What glory comes from bullying those who cannot fight back?" The captain stood up from his command chair and walked over to face Vextar directly. His yellow eyes burned with anger and shame that one of his soldiers had brought this disaster upon them. "Because of your stupidity, we now face 5 human dreadnoughts because of your cruelty. Innocent prisoners may die because of your moment of rage. You have dishonored everything we claim to stand for." Across the communication, Channel Admiral Tae-hyun's voice remained calm and patient, like a teacher explaining simple facts to slow students. "Captain, I am waiting for your response. My patience has limits, and those limits are measured in minutes, not hours." Vextar looked around, the bridge desperately seeking support or sympathy from his fellow soldiers. Instead, he found only cold stares and expressions of disgust. Even his closest friends would not meet his eyes. "I was maintaining proper discipline," he said weakly. The human child needed to learn respect for his betters. Betters Admiral Tae-hyun's voice cut through the ship like a laser beam. "What makes you better than an 8-year-old child? Your size, your weapons, your ability to hurt those who cannot defend themselves." Questions hit Vextar like physical blows, because he had no good answers. His entire worldview was built on the idea that might made right, that superior physical strength gave him authority over weaker beings. "In my culture, we do not measure worth by the ability to harm innocents," Tae-hyun continued. "We measure it by the willingness to protect those who need protection. You have failed that test completely." Captain Thexvar realized that further delay would only make their situation worse. The human admiral was clearly prepared to wait only so long before taking more direct action. "Vextar, report to Shuttle Bay 2. Immediately, he ordered, you will transfer to the human fleet to face charges for your crimes." No, Vextar backed away from his. "Captain, I refuse. I will not be handed over to alien justice systems like a common criminal. Then you condemn everyone aboard this convoy to death." Captain Thexvar replied coldly. "Because Admiral Tae-hyun will not leave without you." The bridge fell, silent, except for the hum of electronic systems. Everyone understood the mathematics of their situation. 5 human dreadnoughts versus 1 reptilian battlecruiser and some prison ships. It was not even a fair fight. Vextar looked at the tactical displays showing the human fleet. The Soul's Fury alone carried enough weapons to destroy his ship 3 times over. The other 4 dreadnoughts were just insurance against any possible escape. But surely they would not risk a war over one incident, he said desperately. The Federation Council would never approve such action. The Federation Council is not here, Admiral Tae-hyun replied, and his voice now carried a hint of dark amusement. But I am here with 5 ships and a very simple demand. Captain. Thexvar activated the ship-wide communication system so his entire crew could hear what came next. All hands, this is your captain. Due to criminal actions by one of our personnel, we are now under threat from a superior enemy force. The announcement caused panic throughout the ship as crew members realized how close they were to destruction. Many had families back home who would never see them again if shooting started. Vex-Tar has brought shame upon our legion and endangered every life aboard. This convoy, Captain Thexvar continued. He will be transferred immediately to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. The captain turned off the ship-wide channel and looked directly at Vex-Tar with contempt. You have exactly 5 minutes to report to the shuttle bay. If you refuse, I will have you dragged there by security forces. Vex-Tar realized that his own people had abandoned him. His fellow soldiers, his captain, even his closest friends were willing to hand him over rather than risk their lives for his mistakes. But what about reptilian honor, he asked desperately. What about standing together against alien threats? You forfeited any claim to honor when you struck that child. Captain Thexvar replied. Now you will face the consequences of your actions. Through the communication channel, Admiral Tae-hyun's voice carried a note of finality. Captain, my sensors show no movement toward your shuttle bays. I am beginning to wonder if you are stalling for time. We are not stalling, Admiral Thexvar replied quickly. The transfer will proceed immediately. Then I suggest you hurry, Tae-hyun said pleasantly. Because in exactly 3 minutes I will assume you are refusing my lawful demands and will act accordingly. The threat was clear and absolute. Vex-Tar looked around the bridge one final time, hoping to see some sign of support. Some indication that his fellow reptilians would stand with him against human aggression. Instead, he saw only faces filled with anger and disgust. They blamed him for bringing this catastrophe upon them, and they were right. His moment of casual cruelty had endangered thousands of innocent lives. Security guards entered the bridge and moved toward Vex-Tar with weapons drawn. They were his own people, but they looked at him like he was an enemy. Come along, the security chief said quietly. Do not make this harder than it has to be. Vex-Tar allowed himself to be escorted from the bridge without resistance. His massive frame seemed to shrink as the reality of his fate settled upon his shoulders. As they walked through the corridors, other crew members turned away rather than look at him. Some whispered among themselves about the human admiral who had come to collect justice for his son. The shuttle bay was cold and empty except for a small transport vessel that would carry Vex-Tar to his fate. The security guards handed him over to shuttle crew members who treated him with professional courtesy but obvious distaste as the shuttle launched from the Scaled Justice. Vex-Tar looked back at his ship through a small porthole. He realized he would probably never see it again. The humans had come for him, and humans were known for their long memories. The shuttle crossed the empty space between fleets while both sides watched tensely. One small craft carrying one disgraced soldier was all that stood between peace and a battle that could destroy everything when the shuttle docked with the Soul's fury. Vex-Tar stepped into a world unlike anything he had ever experienced. Human corridors were clean, efficient, and somehow more threatening than the most fearsome alien warships Admiral Tae-hyun was waiting for him.